agencies by myself for actual racist agency. But the one that happened last year, the Carter agency, as you guys know, I discovered that they were scamming black women. They had over 43 black women on their payroll for 3 years, and none of them were smart enough. They were all daft to figure it out. I did 3 contracts with them, and I figured out that they were scamming people. And I put the camera in front of my face, and I called them out, and everyone told me not to do it, but I did it. But here's the kicker. There was not a single black influencer who stood up for me. There was not a single black influencer on that payroll who stood up for me. I did it on my own. I shut down the Carter agency by myself with no help from any black person. There were four white people who stood next to me publicly, and that was Susan, Yara, Jesse, Steven, and Nathan. They were all white, and they stood up with me publicly to take down this agency that was scamming black people. You can't touch me. There's nothing you can do that will hurt my feelings. You can't call me a corn and it will hurt my feelings because I know what I've done for this industry. With that said, you guys pick and choose. Your internal racism is so deep. You pick and choose which black people you will stand up for, which shade. I went on her page and looked at her. She's light skin or brown skin, whatever. Which shade of black people you want to stand up for? You need to look in the mirror and not look at me. Figure that out within yourself. With that said, 2 things. The days of me being black influencers mule are over. I did my part. Someone else can do it moving forward. I did it for 10 years. I took down 4 agencies by myself. Specs and Blazers, Google it. By myself. I was calling racist brands out before you were in high school. So I'm done. My loyalty died with Carter agency. No one stood up for me. The days I would never put this camera in front of my face again and stood up for any of us. Never again. I'm going to collect my check and I'm going to deposit it. And I'll keep being fabulous. I would never put this camera in front of my face again and stood up for any of us. Never again. I'm going to collect my check and I'm going to deposit it. I would never put this camera in front of my face again and stood up for any of us.
Later.
What happened to solidarity with black influencers? What happened to solidarity with black women?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Now Sopranos. No, ma'am. No.
Hello everyone, my name is Brianna, aka Slow Reader. I know I have been gone for a long time. It's been a good couple of years, and honestly, I don't have any explanation. I don't have any excuses. I've moved house like twice. I got a cat. My cat passed away. We're here. So, I've been wanting to come back to YouTube for a while now. The issue is that like I was like, oh, I want to make obviously like book reviews, but I haven't been reading. Also, I've been just like a lot more busier with work and stuff, and it's just been crazy. So here I am with drama videos. I have 2 drama videos that I'm going to try to do, and I'm reading. I promise you I'm going to bring you a book review. I'm currently reading Lord of the Flies. I've never read it before, so expect a review on all of that. Usually me reading takes like ages anyway, because like slow reader, I take my time reading, yada yada yada, woo 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 woo, you know, that whole shebang. I'm about halfway through it. It should come eventually. I don't want to say soon. Eventually. Today, I'm going to make a video. First of all, if you're new to my channel, my name is Brianna, aka Slow Reader, again, and I usually make commentary / like drama videos, I guess you could say, and book reviews is usually the content that I do very inconsistently. Subscribe, follow for more, I don't know. That being said, today I want to talk about the Tarte brand trip stuff, which I was like passively looking at, and like I didn't really plan on reviewing or adding my 2 cents, but ever since like the F-150 stuff came in, I wanted to kind of like add my own opinion because there's a lot going on with that. So let me start at the beginning. So if you're not aware, Tarte is a makeup brand. I'm not as familiar with Tarte. I have makeup on, as you can see. I'm still a beginner with makeup, and I don't have like that much makeup. 1, because I don't have space, but 2, I'm kind of the person that wants to go through what I have before I try to get something new or like add to my little baby makeup collection. So yeah, I feel like my wig is like very crooked today. I'm so sorry, y'all. I was trying to be cute and I think I was doing too much. Anyway, so Tarte is this makeup brand. If you're not interested in makeup, but so I kind of want to explain what's going on in chronological order, right? So first of all, what you should know about Tarte in the first place is that Tarte really isn't known for being for like the dark skinned girlies, if you know what I mean. Years and years and years ago, I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, don't quote me on exactly when, I might add it to the screen somewhere, but basically several years ago, Tarte like had released like a foundation, their foundation, and it was 9 or 10 shades, and there were only 2 shades for people with dark skin. There was like a tan, if I remember correctly, and then there was like a dark tone, which was like an orange, this weird like dark orange undertone. Both of them were orange undertones, so like if you were dark skinned and you were cool toned, good luck out there in them streets. So basically what happened after that is that a lot of people, rightfully so, called them out, and I believe this was before the day and age of like Fenty, so like there really weren't a lot of options yet for foundation. It was still like, we were, you know, the struggle was real, let's say that the struggle was still real. So people called out Tarte, and I remember Tarte putting out a statement. Again, don't quote me on all of this because this is so long ago and I don't remember everything. But basically they put out a statement, and in the statement it says something about like, oh, well, this is our summer line, so we're going to expand it later on, but this is our summer line for the summer or something like that. Which was also a weird statement to say, because I'm like, if it's the summer, don't you think that most people are going to get tan? Because, you know, hot out, you're outside, you're in the sun, you're going to get tan. Nope. For some reason, they put out like 7 white girl shades and then 2 shades for people with dark skin, and it didn't make any sense to me. Second thing was that a lot of black people were like, okay, but I'm dark skinned like 365 days out of the year, not just the summer. So what is this? Now I know that they have expanded their shades to be more inclusive. But again, like, their reputation is already kind of, you know, like, if I'm being completely honest, if you are a dark-skinned woman, Tarte is not going to be the first thing you pick up. Honestly, just being completely honest. Or at least, like, for everyday people and from what I've heard around the block. Again, I'm no makeup expert, I'm no makeup guru, but that's just from what I've heard. Like, Tarte really isn't the brand that most dark-skinned women are going for. It just isn't. So, couple things. I have notes, so if you see me, I made it purple for Tarte or whatever, but I have notes, so if you see me, like, if you see my phone somewhere in the corner, or like me looking down or off to the side, it's because I'm looking at my notes. So the thing I want to talk about, there's 3 different trips we're going to go over. Not all of them are necessarily relevant, but to give you context into how we got to where we are now, I'm going to tell you how, you know, we got here. There are 3 trips. For some background information, if you aren't aware, most brands will do what is called a influencer like brand trip. These brand trips are specifically for influencers. They've done them in the past, but now they have like a resurgence of people paying attention to them. But basically the idea is that you will invite an influencer, YouTuber, Instagram, a content creator, TikToker onto a trip. You would probably go, honestly, most of the time it's overseas, not in the United States. But usually they will invite so many influencers to come on a trip, and they're like, we'll take you on this trip, all expense paid, yada yada yada, and like they might send you for like a week, right? And content creators will go, they'll record their trip, blah 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 blah, but then at the same time they will promote whatever new product that the company is coming out with, right? So say I'm coming out with a new foundation, or an eyeshadow palette, or a blush. I'm going to give these influencers my blush. So at some point, it's like the influencer will wake up and be like, well, get ready with me, and here's all the makeup I'm going to put on my face for today. And obviously, one of those makeup items will be whatever the company wants them to promote, right? And for a little bit more context, you don't necessarily get paid like money for this, if that makes sense. It's sort of like an exchange of, you go on this trip, you get makeup. Sometimes they give you like merch or swag or whatever, swag bags and stuff like that, like free stuff, cool free stuff. You go on this all expense paid trip, and in return, the company will get free promotion through these content creators. That being said, people have been trying to calculate, especially with the first trip that Tarte got in trouble for, which we'll get to, on how much all of this costs, which, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money. It's like millions of dollars. But in comparison to what you would pay for like traditional advertising, if that makes sense, like if you were to buy ad space on TV or ad space on the radio, that would be a lot more money compared to just playing off these influencers. And then the return on investment is higher. You would get a lot more people looking or seeing these influencers because they already have like millions of people following them. So there are more eyes looking at this than looking at a TV ad. You get what I'm saying? So this is why a lot of brands will go with this option, because it's cheap, it has high, return on investment. Basically the brands win all around. Does that make sense? Okay. So I feel like I'm talking too fast, but this is how I normally talk. The first trip that we're going to talk about is the Bora Bora trip, or the Dubai trip. Now this trip was in, please tell me I wrote it down. This was around January of 2023, so early 2023. Don't quote me on the exact date, I just remember it was in January, I'm so sorry. Basically, this trip was that several influencers, specifically TikTokers, were invited onto this trip. Now this trip is probably like the beginning of everything spiraling off, if that makes sense. But a bunch of the influencers that were invited onto the trip were TikTokers. They were younger. They didn't really seem like they knew like what they were doing when it came to like getting sponsorships and like accepting like they were new to all of this. Disclaimer with that, but also they should have done a little bit better. Basically what happened was all these influencers, TikTokers specifically, went on this trip and they didn't promote what they were supposed to promote. So Tarte came out with a new foundation, I believe, and like none of the girls on the trip talked about it at all. Then several of them were also like taking like sponsorships, I think, while on the trip, which honestly I don't know if it's in the contract, but it's just common sense. Like if I am paid by like, I don't know, Maybelline to go on a trip, right? And they're like, we want you to promote our, I don't know, eyeliner or whatever, right? And then I'm sitting here like, okay, Maybelline's eyeliner, right? And then I go on the trip and I'm like, let me tell you all about Juvia's Place palettes. And it's kind of like, what do you do? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, it's just weird to promote competitors while you're on this week-long trip. But while they were on the trip, they were like using other people's makeup. They were talking about like other makeup brands, and it just didn't make sense. There were like other brands. I believe Kylie from Kylie Cosmetics ended up liking one of the girls' like video and commenting on it, which doesn't make sense because it's like you're on a Tarte trip. You're on a Tarte trip. You're not promoting, or if they do use Tarte, they just kind of show it on the screen. But I'm saying like, listen, if you are on a Tarte trip, and don't you think that like somewhere in your videos you should be sitting here like, oh, today I'm gonna use the new Tarte blah 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 foundation and blah 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 shade and da 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 da, and then like actually spend time talking about it. But it's like it only shows up on the screen for a split half a second, and then like they would move on. And then there's a whole nother clip of like, I think 4 or 5 girls getting ready, and like they started talking about makeup by Mario and some other makeup brand that starts with an R that I cannot think of. It might be on the screen if I can remember. But basically like these 2 brands, and it's like, okay, but you're there for Tarte. You're there for Tarte. So all of this happened, and it was like Tarte spent so much money, and like basically nobody even knew what the trip was for, and like what product it was there to promote. By the time it was over, people were like, I don't even know what Tarte is selling. And I believe that the marketing person, don't quote me on their official title, but someone, the like head honcho in marketing basically got, or people think that they got fired, and that because there was like something on LinkedIn or something on the internet about an opening for that specific position, so people were kind of like, WTF, right? So that's the first trip. The first trip is just the precursor to everything to come. It's really not even like what I care about the most, if I'm being honest. That trip was messy, but it like, I was like, this isn't like video worthy messy to me, but whatever, okay, right? The next trip was the one in Turks and Caicos. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Turks and Caicos, right? Caicos. Listen, I'm broke. I don't go traveling. as you can see. So this trip was divided into 2 parts, aka, so this trip was divided into 2 parts. The first part was basically they had invited so many girls that they needed to divide the trip into 2. Okay, fine. So the first group of girls that was coming was called Season 1, and then the second group would be called Season 2. So Season 1, Group 1, Season 2, Group 2, right? So Season 1 was, I believe, April 28th to April 30th. I believe. Again, don't quote me on it. I'm so sorry if I got the dates wrong. Please leave it in a comment, but I'm pretty sure this was the weekend. I like came in the middle of this, and then I was trying to do research on like when stuff was going down. So I don't know if I got like the timeline 100% correct, but yeah. So season 1 was April 28th to April 30th. And it was a group of, again, TikTok influencers, pretty much all TikTok influencers. All these trips is nothing but TikTok influencers. Because they're like, you know, the new generation. They're hip, they're young, they're the new fresh thing, blah, 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 blah. And then season 2 was another group that was going to go May 5th to May 7th, I believe. That, like, following weekend, right? So, the problem is that in season 1, there was a creator named Cynthia, who I think her @ is Shoddy Sin, but her name is Cynthia. And she was rather upset after she got back from the trip, which I think she might have talked about it a little bit while she was on the trip. But basically, Cynthia, who is a brown creator, she's a brown content creator, specifically TikToker, and she was quite upset because she had like the smallest room in the group. Now, this isn't like a hotel. It's like a villa, if that makes sense. So it's pretty much like a big ass, fancy ass house. Again, I'm poor. But the sizes of the room aren't necessarily all equal. So Cynthia received one of these smaller rooms, and she was quite upset because she was like, there were girls who had smaller followings than me, and they received the bigger rooms. And you know, she works hard for her content. She worked hard to get where she's at, and so she felt a little bit slighted to get there and see that she really wasn't. It didn't seem like she was being valued as much as some of the other creators. Okay, and honestly, I agree with her because I'm sitting here like that. This doesn't make any sense. Now, there was immediately another issue was that some of the girls got to stay behind to season 2. So they got to stay behind for both weekends. Cynthia was not one of those girls. Cynthia went home. I think one of the girls that people were pointing out, who is a black content creator, don't quote me on that. I think she's black. I'm so sorry. If she's not black, I'm pretty sure she's black. Her name is Gloria. Gloria has fewer followers than Cynthia. And honestly, I'm not the type of person that really cares about follower count, but I bring this up for a reason. Just bear with me. So Gloria had fewer followers than Cynthia, but for some reason she got one of the bigger rooms. And then she was also invited to stay for weekend 2. Which, I'm not going to fault Gloria for either of these things. It's by no means her fault. If someone invited me to stay in Caicos for an extra weekend, of course I'm going to take that. I'm not blaming her for saying yes to that, right? But this is more so of a Tarte issue. Like, we'll get to it. But basically, Gloria got to stay, Cynthia was sent home, and it just really wasn't obvious what the decision was behind some girls getting to stay and then some girls having to go home. The girls from season 1 that got to stay basically stayed offshore at a different house. And I'm like, well, if you have all this money to rent an extra house and we're gonna get there. So Cynthia gets sent home, and she basically like makes her a video basically talking about all of her feelings about it, saying how she didn't feel as valued, yada yada yada, right? And now enter a third TikTok creator. This one is a white creator. Again, I bring this up for a certain reason, but her name is briannachickenfry. I will refer to her as Brianna. Not me, obviously different Brianna, but she added her 2 cents saying that, you know, basically this is just how the industry works, and when you're in basically the content in this industry, you get ranked on your followers and yada 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 and blah 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 blah. And how when she was on the trip, she was also given the smallest room, but she was also like, oh well, I don't have the as many followers as some of the other girls and yada yada yada, right? And at the same time, like, basically in so many words just said like she was just happy to be there or whatever, right? And you'll hear this rhetoric several times, so just keep it in your mind, but I'm going to address Brianna right now. The issue that I have, and again, this isn't meant for her to receive any sort of harassment or hate or anything like that, but my issue is this. 1, you gave your 2 cents on a situation you knew nothing about. I understand her whole point of like, oh, well, when you're in this industry, you get ranked on how many followers. But if you had done your research, or at least kept your opinion to yourself, you would realize that Gloria, who has less followers than Cynthia, received a bigger room. So obviously that doesn't fucking apply here. So for some reason, I don't know why, again, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just like, don't give your opinion when you don't know what the fuck is going on. And this is not the first time this is not the last time a creator is going to stick their nose into somewhere it doesn't belong. But again, so all of that happens, and then my other bone to pick with Brianna, which again, not trying to send hate, not trying to do any of that, but this is just mostly a PSA for anyone that thinks that they should give their opinion about this situation. And again, I also did see quite a few comments about people sitting here like, oh, this is such a first world problem, and right? Like, oh, if I was given a trip, I would just be happy, and da-da-da-da-da. Like, basically, so many people just saying, just be happy you were there, just be happy you were sent an invite, just be happy you got to be there. And I'm like, just because you get to be somewhere and treated unfairly doesn't mean that black people have to accept that or deal with it. And brown people included, hell, people of color. That does not mean that they get to be treated any type of way just because y'all decided to send them an invite and be involved in something. Either treat them the same and equally and with respect, or don't do it at all. But okay. Okay. So, that being said, the point that I was trying to make is that white people will do anything and everything in their power to tell someone who is non-white about how they should feel about someone treating them wrong based off of their race or their ethnicity. They will be the first people to tell you how the fuck you should feel when someone steps to you wrong, when someone mistreats you, when someone is racist to you, when someone discriminates against you. They are the first in line to tell you how the fuck you should feel about it. Don't do that. Period. And I don't really think that this Brianna girl meant anything by it. I don't think that was her intention. But regardless of whether or not it is, y'all need to stop that shit. It needs to stop. Because that shit has happened to me too. It needs to stop. You need to stop telling people how the fuck to feel about something that has nothing to do with you, that doesn't impact your life, that you personally have never experienced and probably will never experience. Stop doing it. I think that was the whole, that was everything with Turks and Caicos. That being said, we're going on to the one I have the most notes about, which is the Miami Formula One Grand Prix trip. So, Formula One Grand Prix is basically, if you're not aware, this like race car thing. I'm not into race cars, but it's in Miami, and it occurs. It was happening over the weekend, so I believe Saturday to Sunday. Now the way this works is that no, I think it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. I'll put it somewhere on the screen. But basically, Friday and Saturday are supposed to be practice rounds. So it's not the actual race. But you can, you know, if you have a ticket, you can go in and see the practice rounds. That being said, there has been a large conversation about people going to the practice versus going to the actual race, and how some people are like, the practice is basically the same thing. No, it's not, baby. No, it's not. If it was, it wouldn't be called practice. It would be called the same fucking thing. But okay. But I do see the pros and cons of each one, where it's like, oh, well, if you go to the practice, it's less people. You get to see more, da-da-da-da-da. You get to be a little bit closer, you know, to the front to see what's going on. I understand all of that. Put a pin in that. So basically what happened was, there was a TikTok creator named Bria Jones. I'm just going to refer to her as Bria. Who, she made a TikTok because she wasn't going to go on the trip. Because she realized she wasn't going to be treated the same as the other girls going on the trip. Again, all TikTokers that are going to be here. All of them are on TikTok. All of them make TikTok content. TikTok. Okay. She was quite upset. She made this video saying that she was quite upset because she felt as though she was going to be treated unfairly. She wasn't going to be treated equally. Now, the reason behind that is because she was supposed to fly in, I think Friday. But she was going to fly out Saturday. And she started talking to all the other girls who were going to go on the trip. And they said that they were going to fly in, but they were going to stay until, actually, I think they might have been flying in Saturday, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, they said that they were going to fly in and that they were going to stay and be there for the race that was happening on Sunday. Bria was only going to the practice race, and then she was going to go home. So obviously it makes her feel type way when you are talking to everyone that's going to be on the trip and they're going to see the real race, and you're just there for the practice race, right? And I know, again, a lot of people are sitting here like, oh my God, this is so first world problems and da 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 da, and you should just be like happy to be there, blah 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 blah. Exit stage left, baby, because you don't get it. The issue, if you haven't grasped onto it now, is the issue is that she is not being treated the same, right? If you are going to invite, and this is my thing, I'm going to come back to this again. Tarte needs a trip advisor, a trip planner, somebody who can organize this because it just seems like everyone involved, the Tarte CEO has to put out a statement and she has to say something about X or Y or Z, or well, we didn't think about this and we didn't think about that, and all these last minute changes that make no goddamn sense. I'm like, you can pay someone to do this. You have all this money. Pay someone to figure out all the semantics, all the tiny details about planning a trip. When do people fly in? When do they leave? What's the itinerary? Where are they gonna stay? Where's the hotel? What are they gonna eat? They'll figure all this shit out for you. Why is this not okay? Sorry, I'm trying to calm myself down. So, all this being said, Bria said that she was not going to go on the trip because she felt upset. There has been some talk about how she has been on other trips and she was okay with being the token girl or whatever, and da-da-da-da-da, or she doesn't really have any black friends. I don't really think that's relevant to this situation right now. Whatever she felt before is not how the fuck she feels now. So, I mean, I'm going to give her some grace and just be like, maybe she's changed. That's not my problem. My problem is making the point I want to make. That being said, she was upset. She didn't want to go, yada, yada, yada. But the CEO of Tarte, she made a response basically saying that the itinerary, first of all, back up, because I don't know if the CEO of Tarte said this in her video or not, but basically the itinerary was going to be the same for everyone, which meant that each girl was going to go to a race, they were going to go have a dinner, and then they would be able to go to a nightclub. Those are the three main things that everybody was going to be able to do. My problem is that you can't say everybody's itinerary was the same, because there's a big difference between going to the practice races and going to the real races. Big difference. Huge difference. So again, I don't know if Bria was literally the only one, because honestly that wouldn't even make that much sense. Maybe it was another group of girls and they were doing a season 1, season 2 thing and they just weren't going to make that big of a deal about it. But from what I've seen, Bria's the only one that was going to be going and then leaving early. So again, her CEO talking about the itinerary, and then she also talked about, well, I didn't think that people would care so much. Let's be real, nobody fucking cares. Most girls that you are flying, I can bet you my left toe that 90% of the girls who are going on this trip don't give a damn about no fucking races, no car races, cars going around in a fucking circle. No one, they don't care. They don't care. They just want to go on the trip. Let's be real. But the issue is being treated differently. You have all the white girls, because let's be real, let's think about the optics of this. You have all the white girls going to the real race, and then you have a black girl who's going to a practice race. And of course, probably nobody saw anything wrong with this, because y'all still have a diversity problem. As much as you try to pretend that you don't, you have a problem with diversity. Because no one saw anything wrong with this. You should have someone on your team to point this out to you, and you don't. Fix it. Anyway, hold on. My video is about to stop. So if you had somebody on your team, you probably would have had a black person, a brown person, hell, anybody that's not white on the team that's sitting here like, this, the optics of this doesn't look good. You know, your whole thing is marketing. How people are going to look at you, how people are going to interpret you, how people are going to respond to you. How do you not understand this? You literally have, there are people who study psychology for this. There's psychology behind selling somebody something. And honestly, you have track record after track record after track record after track record treating dark-skinned girls differently than how you treat the white girls. And it's not even a matter of intentionality at this point, because whether it's intentional or not, the problem is that nobody saw it. Nobody thought to think ahead and be like, okay, well, how are people going to interpret this? How are our content creators that we claim we love so much going to feel about this? Am I crazy? Is it me? Got my wig slipping and sliding all over the fucking place. Anyway, where was I? So the Tarte CEO put out this statement, and she also said something along the lines of, no, I think it was a comment, or something along the lines of that, of saying like, we tried to call Bria, but she didn't call us back, and we tried to message her, but she unhid our messages. I have no idea what that's about. If Bria was still upset with them, that's completely her thing. Again, don't know what that's about. So Bria eventually, a couple days later, I think, put out a statement which was pretty much an apology, and the apology was very much so like PR. It felt rehearsed. It felt like, you know, like lawyers got involved and said like, oh, you're breaching your contract or something like that, or you're breaching your NDA. We need you to put out a statement to stop the hate, or something like that. That's what it felt like. I could be wrong, and maybe she just wrote it up herself so she, you know, wouldn't feel nervous or whatever the case may be, maybe seem put together, but it felt a little bit weird. That being said, there are 2 other creators that got involved. Tarte then, after Bria basically wasn't trying to call them back, invited 3 other black creators. I don't know if Bria was the only black girl on this trip. If so, why? And second of all, if y'all could go from 1 black girl to inviting 3 black girls, again, what's happening? What is going on with the budget and the trip planning? Why not invite Bria and these 3 other girls in the first place? Why are we not thinking? Who's on the marketing team? Who's a trip advisor? Who's putting this together? Because it's not, I have no reason to be this upset. I really don't. So 2 of the girls we're going to focus on, one of their names is Nike. It looks like Nike, but it's Nike. And then the other girl's name is Fannita. So both of the creators, when they accepted the trip, because eventually they did, and I'm skipping around a little bit, so I apologize, but both of the creators, when they accepted the trip, they received backlash from mostly people in the black community, let me be honest. But the idea was that people were sitting like, well, since Bria, you know, called out Tarte and didn't want to go, you should have not gone on the trip or rejected the offer in order to stand in solidarity with Bria, which I disagree with. Just because Bria didn't want to go doesn't mean they don't have to go. But what I will condemn is their actions after they accepted the trip, because that shit was messy. And if you claim to be the professional that you are, you would have never did this shit. Anyway, just because Bria didn't want to go doesn't mean they can't get their bag too. Alright? That's just my opinion. If you want to be mad about it, go ahead and be mad about it. I ain't gonna stop you. So, Fannita went on a TikTok live with someone recorded and put up on the internets. Basically saying that she knew the truth before it came out, and that Bria misunderstood the situation. Which my question is, hold on, let me look at my questions, because I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. Why did you know about the situation that had nothing to do with you? How do you know she misunderstood a situation between Bria? This whole thing was between Bria and Tarte. How do you know what's going on with Bria and Tarte? How do you know she misunderstood something? And what would the misunderstanding be? The itinerary? Because again, the fact that maybe she misunderstood the fact that, oh, all the girls had the same itinerary, quote unquote, and that was a misunderstanding. That was never the problem in the first place. So again, this situation had nothing to do with you. Why are you in her business? Why are you in her bag? I don't understand that. Then on top of that, was sitting here like, oh, well, she misunderstood. What was the misunderstanding? Because this comes up several times. Oh, Bria misunderstood. She misunderstood. It was just a misunderstanding. What was the misunderstanding specifically? Be specific. Because you opening your mouth and inserting yourself into a situation and then vague posting about it, because I hate when people vague post, because that's what the fuck that was. Why? You literally could have just shut your mouth, went on the trip, and had a good time. Now, all the people that was sending her hate, you're wrong. You really are. You had no reason to harass that girl the way that you guys did. However, she didn't have to say anything about Bria, because that was a whole situation that didn't have anything to do with her. And the fact that people was going at her talking about, oh, well, you blah, 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 Bria, blah, 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 Bria, all you got to say is that didn't have nothing to do with me. I'm going on the trip. Her situation had nothing to do with me. I'm going on the trip. That's it. That's all. But you wanted to open your mouth and say X and Y is it. Okay. So then, Nike. Whoo, this girl. First of all, first things first that should be said is that she is Nigerian. Now, I only bring this up because it comes up later. She brings it up later in her videos that her whole Nigerian pride and yada 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 and blah 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 and woo 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 woo. So Nikkei posted a video about this situation as well. So this video had to be fucking 10 minutes long, which at this point, which is not really here nor there about anything about the situation. But to me, if you're gonna put out a statement that long, you might as well go to YouTube and post a YouTube video and call it a day. But this rant she went on is deleted now anyway, so I might put in clips about it here, but I got notes. So first thing she brings up is that she talked about how she went through the struggle. Basically, Nikkei gets on this soapbox about her giving advice to content creators and new content creators and how they should go about doing their business and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, who are you? Who are you? Apparently she has a site where you can buy her masterclass on basically how to be an influencer. I'm like, listen, I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but I wouldn't buy a masterclass on nothing, period, anything. Because there's too many resources out here for you to Google it or go to YouTube and figure out how to do it for free. That's just that on that. But I'm not here to tell you what to do with your life, and I'm not here to tell to stop this girl from getting her bag. So more power to you, I guess. But anyway, so she basically starts off with saying how when she first started out, she went through the struggle and she would sleep on trains and she would change in alleyways because she was going to these events and she was poor and she had to blah 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 blah. Basically, all my life I've had to fight bullshit, right? So, the point of her bringing this up was pretty much her trying to be like, oh well, I was just happy to be there. Which again, I told you about this whole, I was just happy to be there. I was just glad to get the invite. I was just happy to blah, 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 blah. And people, and we'll get into it, into more reasons as to why people call her this. But there are so many people who call her a coon. If you don't know what a coon is basically, it's from this really old book called Uncle Tom. I have not fully read Uncle Tom. I remember reading part of it because I was like, I want to read it. Never got to finishing it. But basically, the word coon is based off of this Uncle Tom character who is basically trying to... How do I say this in a way that makes sense? Basically, he's trying to like appeal to white people. So Uncle Toms or coons are basically words for, more so if I'm being honest, it's really for black people who will punch down on black people and sort of side with racist white people and their rhetoric and their ideals in order to be like, oh, I'm the good black person, I'm one of the good ones, and to try to get closer to whiteness. It's a whole thing. I can't explain it all in this video, but basically, if that kind of makes sense, tap dancing for master type shit. And this is not language that I usually use, but I just wanted you to get that point. So, coon, I feel like, is a little bit harsh, and I don't necessarily know if I agree with all of that when it comes to Nikkei, but you can decide that on your own. Anyways, so she brought that up, and then at some point she's referring to Tarte, but basically tried to say, oh, I know Tarte's not racist, and I know that they've always treated me well. Whew. Here's my thing with this argument. First of all, I know that they're not racist. How the fuck would you know that? How would you know that? You don't know a person and you don't know what's going on in their head. There's a whole thing called covert racism. And it happens in the North because a lot of people try to act like it throughout history. Oh my God, history lesson. History lesson. So basically back in the day, if you lived in the South, the racism was very loud in your face. People called you the N-word, people spat on you, people harassed you, people were very loud and out and proud about how much they did not like you. In the North, they still didn't like your ass, but they didn't say it to your face. And it still happens to this day. It's a lot of moving seats when you sit next to a white person. It's a lot of clutching their bags and their purses when you walk past them. It's a lot of minimizing your feelings, trying to tell you, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, this person apologized 10 years ago for the fact that they said the N-word, so why are you still mad? Oh, racism happened so long ago, so why are you still mad? Yada, 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 on and on and on and on. The other thing that she brought up, she was like, oh, well, I know they've always treated me well. Okay, and? The conversation was never about you. The conversation was about Bria. The conversation was about Cynthia. The conversation was never about Nikkei. The conversation conversation was never about how Tarte treats Nikkei. So what the fuck does that mean to me? I don't care. I really don't. It's the same thing, because that's one of my pet peeves, is when people be like, oh, well, they were always nice to me. Whether it has to do with racism or abuse or whatever the fuck that's going on, people that want to insert themselves into the conversation talking about, oh, well, that person was always nice to me. Fuck you. I didn't ask you. It's almost like people can treat someone one way and a different person the other, because people have different feelings about different people. There's also the idea that people can be manipulative, including brands, including companies. Baby, they don't care about you. They care about making money. And that's just it. It just is what it is. Anyway, because, ooh, this shit reminds me of when the Bill Cosby shit was happening, and fucking Raven Simone entered into the chat talking about, oh, well, Bill Cosby was always nice to me. Well, baby, most of the victims were grown women, and when Bill Cosby met you, you were a child. So maybe you should sit down and shut up, because you weren't in his age range of victims. Anyway, she also talked about how she charges a diversity fee for some reason, where like if she goes onto a trip or she gets invited to an event and she sees that she's the only black girl there, then she charges an extra fee, which is basically whichever creator you're paying, the highest pay you're giving to whoever. I'm trying to word it correctly. I can't speak anymore, y'all. Your highest paid creator, double that for me, because I'm the only black girl in the room. And I will say, I side with her on the fact of when she calls people out about that, people will respond with, oh, well, we didn't realize and we didn't know. And she's like, I know, because y'all don't have anyone black for that thought to even cross your mind. You're so used to white being the norm that it doesn't even come across you. And that's part of the problem. That part I do agree with her on. Now, about this whole diversity fee, because a lot of people was pointing to this, talking about, oh, she's a coon, she's this, she's that. Again, that's your own opinion. I don't know if I consider her a coon or not. I'm not going to go that far. But I will say it was kind of shady, especially considering how she was just so proud throughout the whole video. And I'm like, this is not shit you should be proud about. If you want to profit off of being the token black girl, go ahead. I'm not going to stop your bag, but that comes at a cost. People are not going to respect you when you say shit like that, because it's a matter of sacrificing a bit of your integrity for that. I've been in that situation where I was the token black girl before, and it is not fucking fun. I remember being in college and they would bring up the race conversation and all the white people would turn to you and be like, what's your opinion? You're the black person here, you know? So that shit ain't fucking fun and it doesn't feel good. But I also wasn't getting paid to do that shit, so maybe it's a whole different other situation. Anyway, I just felt weird about that, because I'm like, she talks about a story about how apparently one girl tried to call her out recently. She didn't say the name of the girl, but one girl tried to call her out recently, and Nikkei mysteriously ends up on the phone with her sponsors. Mind you, the girl that called her out only has one sponsor, one brand that's been paying her. And Nikkei somehow, she doesn't say how, ends up on the phone with this brand, and they said, oh, we're gonna end our relationship with her. So you're telling me this girl brags about stopping someone else's money, stopping someone else's bag, and she was just like laughing about it. She found this shit cute. And I'm like, that's not fucking cute. I don't give a fuck what she called you or what, because most likely what she said probably wasn't even that bad. And if it was, I'll take it back. But you really stopped this girl from coming up in the industry. And I don't understand how you can be like, oh, I have this whole master class to help influencers come up in the world, but they also talk about this girl and stop her from getting her bag because she said it's some shit you didn't like. The word narcissist in terms of Nikkei has also been thrown around. I don't know if I would go that far, because I'll be honest with you, narcissist is a very strong word in my opinion. It comes with a lot of shit, and it has a lot to do with the mental health community, and I just don't feel like it's right to throw around that kind of word without a diagnosis. It's the same to me. It's in the same boat as calling somebody a psychopath or a sociopath. You don't really know that to be true, and that's not really something you should be throwing around like that. You should be careful. But again, That's just my opinion. If you disagree, I'm not gonna stop you. We're almost done, y'all. This analogy. Now I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about this analogy. How she did not get canceled, but basically she made this analogy, basically trying to say like, if you, I remember now. If you are not the type of person that makes content calling out brands, then don't do it, because you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. I disagree. I don't think necessarily if you are the type of person that goes from, oh my God, I love every brand and I love everything and everything is so great. And then you wake up one day and try to be like, oh, well, you know what? This brand really isn't that great and I have a problem with them being racist or discriminatory against me. I don't really think that's that big of a problem. But again, a lot of it, I also do see her side where it's like you could really ruin your relationship with that brand. But at the same time, I believe that people can change over time and people have growth, especially with some of these younger TikTok creators. A lot of them are in their 20s, and the way that you are when you're 25 is not the same as when you were 19, 18, you know? So take that with a grain of salt. But basically this analogy that she gave, and I have the exact quote because baby, she was basically saying that a neurotypical person cannot act out because of societal norms. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing a little bit with that first part. But if a neurodivergent person can act out all the time because they're crazy. And I'm like, did she just say that?
Moral of the story is this: if you didn't start your brand calling out brands, don't start halfway through your career. It will ruin your career. I'll give you an analogy. If you are a neurotypical person and you always act right, you follow all the rules in society, and you act out once, society will never forgive you. They'll lock you up forever. It's human nature because we hold you to a higher standard. But if you see a crazy person walking down up and down and they act out once, we're like, oh, twice or 10 times. We're like, well, they're crazy. The same rule applies here to me, Kanye, people like that. No matter what I do to brands, like, it's just specs and blazers. That's what she does. She puts the camera in front of her face. She calls her out. We took her out to dinner. Everything is A-okay.
Did she really just say that and nobody clocked her on it? I could be wrong, but I remember watching that, and again, this was all deleted. So I remember watching I Am Eloho. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make sure I don't butcher her name. I Am Eloho. She has on her channel her full rant. If you want, I'm gonna link it in the description or like somewhere up here, I think, for you to go look at it so you can see the full context. But I remember her saying that, and I was like, did she really just say that? Because that's ableist as fuck. And granted, I am not perfect when it comes to ableism, but I'm just sitting here like, the way that she just said that, I can't imagine her saying that and nobody clocking her on it. Maybe somebody did, but I didn't see a lot of people clocking her on that shit. First of all, the whole thing about calling neurodivergent people crazy, unacceptable. You don't do shit like that. That's not okay. You don't, matter of fact, you don't even do that with normal fucking mental illnesses. You just don't say that. You don't do shit like that. And I don't know if it's like, oh, maybe she grew up differently or she grew up, but knowing now, it's not okay. Mental health is serious. And you don't say, oh, this person who's neurodivergent is crazy. You don't say that about somebody who's a psychopath. You don't say that about somebody who's a sociopath. You don't say that to somebody who's a fucking narcissist. You don't say that to somebody who's fucking depressed. You just don't say that. You don't call someone crazy, because the reason why you don't do that shit is because it invalidates their feelings and it invalidates the struggles that they go through. Because if you are sitting here depressed, you sitting here going through shit, you sitting here like your mind isn't right, you seeing things, you hearing things, you feeling the type way, and people just write that shit off and say, oh, it's no big deal, you just crazy. That's not okay. It's not okay. Anyways, gotta breathe. Gotta breathe. And then at the same time, just saying that, oh, well, neurodivergent people can get away with shit because they act crazy. Oh, they're just hard, because that's along the lines of saying, oh, well, they can get shit because they act out, and that's normal for them, and that's okay for them. No, it's not. It's not. The reason why people they act out, and it is not acting out, because she used that somewhere in her rant as well. It's like, oh, well, they get to act out. It doesn't have anything to do with acting out. Again, it has to do with the way your brain works. Some people don't pick up on societal norms. Some people don't pick up on societal standards. Some people are awkward, and it's not because of their personality. It's because of how their brain is wired. Some people just don't have that, and you can't just say that, because neurodivergent is a broad term. Neurodivergent has to do with people who have ADHD, people who have autism, people who have anxiety. It's an umbrella term for all of these different... Okay. I got. Whew. And again, I don't consider myself the most eloquent person to speak out about this, because I myself, I don't even know if I'm neurodivergent myself. I think I'm neurotypical, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, it's still not okay to just say this type of shit. And I say this because I also suspect that because this drama has a lot to do with the black community, and the black community, I'm gonna say it now, is not the best when it comes to neurodivergency and being sensitive to those types of things and understanding it properly. But this shit is not okay. Period. I'm gonna leave it at that. If somebody else has something to add to the conversation, I welcome you in the comments, because I also understand that I'm not the most eloquent person to talk about all this shit. But I was just like, oh my God, I was floored. Anyway, she basically ends her rant with you know, just her bragging about herself. If she wants something, she'll get it, and how no one can come for her, and yada yada yada, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, so people rightfully so dragged her for this, said that she was a coon, said that she was basically, I believe the biggest thing that they said was that she was a coon and that she was a narcissist. Again, these are not necessarily things that I would throw out there, but what you did was wrong, and you knew it was wrong because you took it down. As much as she brags about how well she does as an influencer and all these brands and sponsorships and how no one can come for her, and now you took that video down for a reason. Why? Because it makes you look bad. Why? Because if brands were to see that shit, they wouldn't want to fucking work with you. Because I sure in the hell wouldn't. If I was fucking Maybelline or Tarte and I saw shit like this, I'll be like, this girl is messy. And you claim to be such a fucking professional, but you out here in fucking drama. Again, Nika is in the same fucking boat as Fannita. You could have really just kept your mouth shut and moved on with your life. You could have said, again, this situation with Bria, I understand most of y'all are upset, and I'm sorry about it, but I'm still going to go on this trip, and what's going on between Bria and Tarte has nothing to do with me. Would people still have been mad at you? Sure. Would you have lost followers? Sure. Would you still have gotten a bunch of angry DMs? Sure. But again, this is stuff that you should handle behind the scenes. This is not something you had to bring to the forefront of a huge audience, because when you have a huge audience, it's not just your followers looking at you. It's brands and potential companies that want to sponsor you that will see shit like this and decide whether or not they want to work for you. Because best believe, even though you try to be like, oh well, no one's coming for my brand and no one can come for me and I got all these lawyers, when you look up her name with your specs and blazers on TikTok, all this drama still comes up. The first search result is not your video, but a girl stitching you saying how messy you are. And that shit ain't going away. So again, because you know, SEO is a thing. So good luck to you. Again, I'm not doing this video to send them hate, but y'all were in the wrong for this. And people were calling you out, and there was other stuff that I wanted to add my opinion into, because again, this was wrong. That's my whole 2 cents on the Tarte brand trip. This is going to be a bitch and a half for me to edit. I'm running out of time on my video, so let me do this quickly. Thank you so much for looking at this video. If you want to subscribe. Just know that I am very inconsistent with my upload schedule, so you might not see me again for a couple of months. But yes, I have another video coming up. I want to talk about the Illuminati stuff, and then I also want to talk about my Lord of the Flies review. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comments below. I will try to respond to my comments, but YouTube doesn't always notify me when I get comments, so I will try to keep up with my comments if I can. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm sorry I was so like passionate. I usually try not to like scream so much in my videos, but sometimes I just get into it. So yeah, that's it. Subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye.